All right, story time. So, Robyn just dropped a new song after 7 years off, and it's called Dopamine.
I know it's just dopamine, but it feels so real to me.
And the irony is that the song dropped the night that I was going to New York City to take another set of Buddhist vows. So I've been deepening my commitment. And I was just thinking about the difference between dopamine and devotion and how my whole life used to revolve around chasing the high. It was like chasing my career identity and climbing the ladder in Manhattan, chasing the high in my relationships, chasing the high in my spiritual practice and hopping around from one thing to the next thing, boop, 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 like novelty chasing. And I just couldn't help but laugh and think, like, what perfect timing. So, perfect opportunity to tell a little story with you guys and just share the difference, in my opinion, between the dopamine and devotion, especially because so many people are still chasing something and wondering why they aren't satisfied yet. Let's get into it. Yeah, I was literally getting on the bus to go to New York City, and I saw the notification, the day prior that Robyn was dropping the song that night. And when I heard it, I really thought to myself, like, the lyrics really hit, because she's saying, like, I know it's just dopamine, but it feels so real to me, And I've noticed over the last couple of years, because I decided to choose this Buddhist path and actually stick with it. And the thing is, with this type of path is that it's a lineage. And so when you get on a path that's a lineage, that's based on teacher-student relationship, like, number one, you need a teacher. Like, you can't learn this stuff if you don't have a teacher. And I don't mean like a teacher, like an occasional teacher that you drop in and then you're like, all right, whatever, I'm going to go do all these other things. It's like at a certain point, you choose a teacher and then you have to ask them to teach you deeper. And if you want to take vows, it's a very secret thing, and it's secret and contained for a reason. But what I will say is that you need to ask them, and they need to say yes. And then you start to form a relationship with a teacher. And as you deepen, on your path and maybe go all the way, if you want to go into like tantric empowerments, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's like you're marrying your teacher in your mind, basically. And so eventually that's the point that you get to, because you're trying to use them as the sort of holy object. It's guru yoga is what we're practicing, actually. So anyway, I was on the bus and I was thinking a lot about my past lives, meaning in this lifetime. I used to live in New York, and I lived there for a really long time, and I was in corporate in the hospitality industry in my early 20s all the way up until my early 30s, and then I left and went to Miami and started a career in the healing arts. So I was having a lot of nostalgia, and I was walking around the city, and I was thinking about when I worked in the hotels and the rat race and my hunger to climb the ladder and my desire to be a boss and to be the top of the top, and how ambitious I was in that time and how frenetic I felt, just literally running around the city like an animal, like literally a rat in a cage. And I was with my sister, and she's never lived in New York, but she was like, this is too much for me. And I'm like, girl, it was too much for me at the time. I had adrenal fatigue. When I lived in New York, I was so stressed, but I was so, hungry for something that I thought was going to bring me ultimate fulfillment. I thought, when I finally get the title, I'm going to be happy. When I finally make that 6 figures, I'm going to be happy. When I finally get XYZ, I'm going to be happy. And so I reached a lot of those points, and I got titles, and I got up to, bigger money. And I felt so unfulfilled. And I remember, this was in 2011, I didn't even have a spiritual practice when I lived in New York. First, I had nothing. I was literally just chasing. And I was also finding that I felt that I was outgrowing my marriage. And so I started going to yoga. And when I started going to yoga, I had a real shift in my mindset where I was like, you know what? I'm not fulfilled, even though I'm successful, on paper, and I have a very nice partner, and everything looks good from the outside. But I remember taking this quiz because I was doing this like health coaching at the time with Institute for Integrative Nutrition. This is like the sort of entry point for me to move away from corporate. And they asked us to do like a quiz and rate our life according to the areas from like 1 to 10 of how satisfied we were. And I just remember that in my spiritual life and in my work life, and also I feel in my relationship life at the time, like the scores were like super low. Like I remember spirituality being like a 1 out of 10. Now it's like a 10. Now it's like a 15 out of 10. Cause like that is a lot of my life is my spiritual practice. And so, yeah, it was that eye opener. I felt at that point, I started to realize when I started to do yoga, instead of being insane and going to spin classes at Crunch 4 days a week after I was in the rat race at work. And then I would literally run to the gym, and then I would get on the spin bike, and then I would go 100 miles an hour in a spin class. And then I would run to get dinner at, Whole Foods in Union Square. And then I would run to the train, and then I would run back home, and then I would get up to do it all over again in the morning. Just thinking about it makes me want to cry. But I did it for like 8 years. Okay. I paid my dues to have my peace now, but thinking back, it was like, what the fuck was I striving for? But that's how we're conditioned, So this was a wake up call. And when I went to yoga and I started going regularly to the studio, I started to hear myself, and I started to really tune in and be like, what am I doing? I am not happy. Like I had to really admit to myself, I'm not happy, and I've worked my ass off and I feel empty inside. Like I actually was kind of satisfied at work in the sense that I enjoyed the team and I liked what I was doing in some capacity, but I did feel an emptiness, and I felt a real lack of connection, beyond just the sort of material realm. And so this was the beginning of the end for me. This is where I was like, I think I need to leave New York. And that was really hard. And my partner at the time didn't want to leave because he was also very successful in his career. He was in the restaurant industry. And he had no interest in going to Miami. He was like, fuck Miami, I hate Miami. So, but we went and then split like within a year. So it was the beginning of a new life for me. And I started thinking about on the bus ride the other night, how ignorant I was, and not in a judgmental way, like in a truly, I was misunderstanding my reality. And then I thought, that the relationship, when I finally got married, like, oh, this will solve it. It didn't. And then when I got the divorce, I thought that'll fix it. And that didn't. And then I got into a new relationship and I thought, oh, this will definitely fix it. And it didn't. And then after the next heartbreak and the next disappointment and the next job loss, I moved to Miami and I just kept getting fired, and I kept having these like huge stumbling blocks. And I was like, I left my whole life in New York for what? To go work minimum wage and be broke and be tired and be burned out and be heartbroken? What the hell am I doing here now? So then I went through a whole nother death and sort of rebirth. And that leads me to fast forward. What's really interesting, and there's never any accidents, my trip to New York for the vows ceremony the other night was exactly like to the month, almost to the day, 20 years from when I moved to New York, because I moved to New York in November, I believe 2005, and I was there in November 2025 to take these vows. And so I already had a set, and then this is my second sort of commitment. And so I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, 20 years, full circle moment, like almost to the day, and in a completely different mindset with a totally different perspective. And I was walking around the Lower East Side, and I was walking around, the city, just thinking to myself, like, just seeing it through different eyes. And so when it came to devotion, like I got to a point in my journey where I was like, I need to pick something and stick with it, because I realized that there was a part of me. How did I know that I was running and chasing the highs? Because what I was attracting were situations and people, whether it were, clients in my current business or, the partners or love interests that I had attracted, all had one foot out the door of their situation or of our situation. And I was like, why would I attract people that are not going all in? Why am I attracting people who are afraid of commitment? Why am I attracting people who are a little bit emotionally unavailable? Why am I attracting people who are avoidant? Why am I attracting people who are resisting being seen fully? Hello, mirror. That was me. Okay. So the more that I realized over time, and it had to happen a lot of times because I'm stubborn, so I wasn't getting the message, but it finally clicked. There was something going on within me where I wasn't all in. And it was hard to look at, and it was triggering, and it was confronting to my ego. And a couple of years ago, I realized I've still got one foot out the door searching for the better thing that's going to save me. Maybe it's going to be the next person, the next lover, the next spiritual practice, the next book that I read, the next teacher that I meet, the next coach that I pay $10,000 to. But I had to pay a lot of people and spend a lot of money and put in a lot of effort to realize that those things were not saving me either. I was still suffering, and I had done so much inner work at this point. So this was like beginning of 2023. And that's when I landed in a Buddhist class about relationships. And I was like, asking the teacher at the time, I have done 15 plus years of dedicated spiritual work and personal development and therapy and all the things to figure out why the fuck my relationships are not the way that I would like them to be, or why the partnership isn't the way that I want it to be, or I didn't have a partner. I was like, why am I still single? And I've done all this work and all these different things, right? And it wasn't until I heard these Buddhist teachings that something different started to land. And I quickly realized, the more that I studied, that if I wanted to have a result here, I was going to have to commit. Well, nothing's accidental. So about a year after I was studying, I decided to take my first set of vows. Some people wait 10 years to take vows. For me, it was sooner. I think all that work leading up to this point, I had the karma for it. So I was like, why not? Just go for it. I had my hesitations. It required being totally sober. No more anything, no alcohol. I wasn't into drugs, but I was definitely, I like to drink sometimes. And I was like, no more drinking. Also, certain ways of being, ethical, conduct. And, I personally had a lot of sexual misconduct in my orbit over the years. And I know that that's a karma that I brought in to this life to clean up. And it's really interesting that I went from being hypersexual to being completely abstinent for a very long time. Like all in all, like over a decade, minus, let's say, like on one hand, I could count the number of times that something happened. Other than that, completely abstinent. So it's really been an interesting journey, because purging the attachment even to sex and to validation, even the high sexually that I was addicted to, I realized when I withdrew that energy and I started to focus all of my sort of sexual energy and my attention on my spiritual practice, like, number one, it really accelerated things. And number two, I realized what an energy leak it was, how much I was actually betraying myself by seeking something outside of me. And it totally shifted my perspective on partnership. And so I'm not saying that sex isn't important or that I don't enjoy it, because I do. I'm saying it's not the motivation that it used to be, in an ignorant way. It's like, I know how powerful sex is, and I know that a strong sexual connection is really important to me in a relationship, but there has to be that spiritual component, and the other person has to be on that wavelength. Otherwise, it will never work. So that changed the way that I was, looking at men. And the way, and not this is not in a judgmental way. This is in a total mirror way. Who am I attracting? Because what type of men are attracted to me? Because that's showing me exactly where I'm at still. Mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, karmically. I need to learn. So I used a relationship as a mirror, and it was my practice, is my practice. And, in this Buddhist lineage, there are tantric practices that you do with a partner as well. That's like part of the lineage. I'm not there yet, but that's like the track that I intend to be on. And so bottom line, I chose the Buddhist path, and I was like, if I take vows, let's see what happens after a year. Let's see how I feel. And in keeping them, I mean, number one, my life is improving all the time. It's like I really noticed the ways that I was being sloppy, that I was being out of integrity, or yeah, just like slightly, even just slightly betraying my integrity. It creates a real domino effect in your life. But I was using particular people in my world as a mirror, particularly romantically and in my business, to understand, to sort of navigate my growth and to be like, all right, I can't ignore what's right in front of me. If I have a person in my orbit who is still being deceptive, where am I still deceiving either myself or other people? If I have a person who's disloyal in my orbit to someone or to something, where am I disloyal? Where, like, every single thing, no matter how uncomfortable it was. I told you I had a lot of sexual misconduct. I had people in my orbit that struggle with addiction or even sex addiction. And I had to look at that and be like, what part of me is seeking validation through another person, through their body, through the high that you get in an encounter, even though you feel like shit afterwards and you can spiral out into shame. There's something you're looking for in that moment of that compulsion to get something out of an encounter with a person sexually. Like, addiction is just a habit of the mind. It's a misunderstanding. Any suffering we experience is a misunderstanding of reality. You think that the pleasure is coming from the person. Well, why do you feel pain later? If pleasure came from other people, why isn't it lasting? Why isn't it permanent? Why doesn't it stay? And it never does, because the pleasure isn't coming from out there. It's coming from your mind. It's coming from our mental impressions that we have to create through mind, body, speech. That's what the vows help us do. So, and the deeper you go and the more vows you take on, the more your mind is going to change, because you're committing to different things in your mind. Oh, let me practice this. Let me practice that. Anyway, long story short, the art of staying is revelatory. I have never experienced more change than I have in the last couple of years that I decided to commit to something and actually stay with it. And the deeper I go and the more that I commit to my teacher and the more that I am seen by this person, the more that I'm learning about myself. And it is, like I said, it's illuminating and it's really confronting sometimes. There's shit that I don't want to look at that I have to look at. There's stuff that's happening that I don't necessarily want to take accountability for, and I have to. Because in this school of Buddhism, it's all coming from me. 100% of my experience is coming from me. That means it's an empowerment. It also means you have to own your shit. So that's just what was on my mind this week, the power of devotion. And this is also how I've been shifting how I'm working with people. So in the past, I had more like short-term offerings, and I realized over time, it's just not enough. It just doesn't work. Like, I'm the type of person, I also have a very small circle of friends, and it's deep. So it's like the tight and right, like the circle is tight, but it goes very deep. And I've noticed that because a lot of my clients are long-term, like they've been with me since I started YouTube like 10 years ago. Those are the people I've formed relationships with. We're going deeper still. And then when new people come in, it's like, I like to form a relationship with my clients. It's not transactional for me. So a lot of times when I do something quick, it's not like I can't do it. It's like I don't enjoy that as much. What I enjoy is the intimacy of a long-term relationship. I enjoy mentoring people over time, not for 6 weeks. So I've changed my offerings, and they're still changing, and I'm not 100% sure what it's going to look like as we go into the new year. But right now, I've got 2 ways to work with me, and one is like an offer called the threshold, which is if you're going through an identity death as a creative, like a spiritual creative like myself. So, because those are the people that were kind of booking with me already. And then I've got this long-term container called Alchemy. There's no sales page yet, but if you want to come in, you can come and apply, and we can talk about it. But I think it's going to be for a year minimum. I had it for 6 months or for a year. And the more that I sit with it, the more that I really only want to work with people that will go there fully. And yes, you can definitely have a transformation in 6 months. But personally, like I've run women's groups for a year, like Rose Temple, and a year barely scratched the surface, if I'm being honest. Because why? Because you start to get resistance, and then you need to integrate, and then you need time, and then shit's going to happen, and then plot twists, and then, another plot twist. And so it's like it's not linear. You know what I mean? It's kind of wobbly and it's like spirally. So even within a year. so many things can transform. But if you don't commit mentally and physically and actually say, you know what, I'm really going to do this and I'm going to put my whole ass into it, you don't get the same type of result. And it's not the same like alchemical process. It's like I could just study Buddhism and not take the vows, but for me it felt cheap. It felt like I'm actually denying myself one of the most powerful gifts, which is a path out of suffering. And if I don't do this correctly and I don't go all in, I'm not going to get that result. So don't bullshit yourself, you know? So that's the point that I'm at. I really don't want to do anything unless it's going deeper, because that's just where I'm at in my journey and in my work. So that's what I've got going on. So the links are below for that. And like I said, I will probably have a little page for alchemy soon, meaning this year-long container. Obviously, by application, it will only be for a very small amount of people, because if we're doing it for a year, it's for a year minimum. But you guys, you want to come out a different person, you've got to say, I'm all in. All right. So that's my story for today. I hope that helped you, resonated. I don't know, you got a little nugget or something landed for you. And I can't say how beautiful it is, actually, the sort of deepening that's happening, how powerful it is to know that when you stay with something, just like if you choose a partner, like a spiritual partnership, and you're in that union, even if you're not together yet, but let's just say that person's in your orbit, like starting to use them as your teacher, as your mirror, truly, always, is an incredibly powerful practice that could, really transform your relationship life. It could lead to more, not that you want to be attached to that, but I'm just saying, like, the things in your orbit now are not there by accident. You created them. So then you need to use them wisely. That's what I can help you do and go deeper. All right. I love you guys. I will see you on the next one.